Okay, although today it's 10:30, we're going to go ahead and do the 1024 opener just to kind of refresh our memories on how to simplify square roots with variables. So we have 4 steps that we're going to follow in order to solve or simplify square roots with variables. The first step, it just says follow the same steps to simplify the numerators or the number part of the square root, such as factor, circle the pairs, etc. So the first thing that we're going to do is factor the 45. So what 2 numbers do I multiply together to get 45?
9.
Okay, so we have 5 and 9. And then for 9?
3 and 3.
So to continue on with step 1, I'm going to continue simplifying the square root. So then I need to remember to bring my coefficient 2 down, my square root sign, and now I'm going to put my prime numbers under my square root sign in order from least to greatest. So it's going to be what here? Now, new part, I also have to put my variables in. So I'm going to drop down my f to the 3rd power times g to the 4th power. To continue on with step 1, I'm going to circle my factor pairs. Well, I only have one factor pair here, right?
No. Don't the letters count?
The letters will come in for step 2. So what happens to this factor pair? It's a single number on the outside. So what's the first part of my coefficient going to be?
2 times 5.
No, 2 times 3.
2 times 3. Remember, my factor pair moves to the outside. So what's 2 times 3?
6.
6. Now here's the new step. So you need to look at step 2 on your notes. What you're going to do is look at your variable. Then you're going to look at that exponent that goes with the variable. And you're going to determine if that exponent is even or odd. So f to the 3rd power, it's going to be odd. So we're going to take 1 off of it and we get 2. So what's half of 2?
1.
1. So my coefficient is just going to be f. Now, why did I underline the f here? I crossed out my exponent and I underlined it. Say it again. Because I'm going to have one f that's going to stay in the radicand. Good. Now I come to my next variable, the g. G to the 4th power. 4, even or odd?
This
Even. So what's half of 4?
2.
2. So that one's going to cancel out evenly and come to, as a coefficient g square root 2, or sorry, g to the 2nd power. Then I'm going to put in my square root sign. And what's my radicand? What numbers did not cancel with that square root sign? 5. And then what variable did not cancel? And that's your final answer. All right. Okay, so the square root of 81, you can actually solve in 2 different ways. Okay? Why can you solve the square root of 81 in 2 ways? It is a perfect square. But if you did your factor tree, that's okay. But if you know it's a perfect square, what you could do is put your equal sign, your square root sign. What's the square root of 81?
9.
9. And so I'm going to have to put what? 9 squared, and then times h to the 8. Okay? So the first thing that we do here, what's square and square root do? What happens to that? And so what's my coefficient then? 9. Now we need to look at our variable and the exponent that goes with it. H to the 8. 8, even or odd? Even. So what's half of 8?
4.
So that's going to cancel out evenly to h to the what power? 4th. And then there's going to be nothing as your radicand. Now, if you did not know it was a perfect square, and you factored it, that's totally acceptable. You'll end up with work that looks like this. So your work might have ended up looking like all this here in the red, and that's okay. So but this way or this way, either way will be acceptable. You'll get full credit as long as you make sure you show all of your work. Any questions on the first two? So the first two here, you're just simplifying the square root. Flip it over. Flip your opener over.
Oh.
What's the back side? Multiplying. So if you have the first two done, go ahead and flip it over and look at the multiplying square roots. When you multiply square roots, what's the first step that you do? When you multiply square roots, what's the very first thing you're supposed to do if they're there?
I mean,
Wait, what?
factor each thing.
No. When you're multiplying square roots together, what's step one?
To see if you can.
Yeah, multiply your coefficients. Well, do I have coefficients there? No. So then step two is factor your radicand. So factor your number part of your radicand. Get it? Okay. So as I was saying, we don't have a coefficient, so we can't multiply them together. So step two was factor our radicand, our number part. So what two factors can I multiply together in order to get 8?
Yeah, I know for it.
Okay, what about for 90? And then for 30? And for 6? Good. You use totally different numbers every single time. I was thinking of different factors. All right, now,
5 to 18.
I would have did 9 and 10 to start off with. Isn't that funny? Okay, so now we're going to come down. When I multiply square roots, where do I put all of my prime numbers?
Under the same thing.
Under the same square root sign. So all of my prime numbers go under the same square root sign. So how many 2's am I going to have to write under there?
4.
How many 3's?
2.
And then how many 5's?
1.
Now, this is the new part. Now we have to look at our variables and their exponents. When you multiply variables and exponents, you can only multiply those that have like terms. So we can only multiply a p with a p. So we have p to the 21st times p to the 2nd. What do I do when I multiply variables with exponents? What operation do I actually do with those exponents?
Wait.
When I multiply p to the 21st times p to the 2nd, what does that equal?
2p. No.
How about p to the, what do I do with my exponents?
P to the 2.
Did this last year with Nimmons and Carlos.
No, you add them.
Yeah, you add them. So what's 21 plus 3, or 2? So p to the 23rd power. Then times q to the 3rd times q to the 5th, which equals, what's 5 plus 3? 8.
Oh, God.
I didn't hear 7.
That was.
But you're pretty confident about that, and that's what I like.
It was.
All right. So now we go back to simplifying how we know how to. So we circle our pairs. Our pairs cancel with the square root sign, and they move to a single number in the coefficient. So if they're moving to a single number in a coefficient, what all numbers move to the outside here? Times 3. So 2 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12. So now I look at the 5 is stuck in there. Can't do anything with that. So now I look at my variable with the exponent. 23, odd or even? Odd. So I'm going to take 1 away from it and get 22. So what's half of 22?
You said what?
What's half of 22? Or it's 22 divided by 2. 11. Now, because it's an odd, I'm going to cancel my exponent with the square root sign, but I'm going to underline my variable because I'm going to have one variable left under there. Then I look at q to the 8th. Q to the 8th is a what type of number? Even. Because it's even, the variable and the exponent will cancel with the square root sign. What's half of 8?
4.
So q to the 4th. All right, so my coefficient is now complete. So now I got to worry about my radicand. So I'm going to put my square root sign. What number is left under my radicand?
5.
And what variable is left under there?
P.
And there's your final answer.
I got